What's up, world? It's your boys again, man. Hey, your boys and your girl, man. We back at the Chatterbox, man. Look, it's been a heck of a 2 weeks, man. We hate that we missed you last week. But yeah, we back up in here. Um, hey, check this out. With just a little recap, man. We did real good on the last show, man. We was talking about what were we talking about?
Um, what was the last one?
Oh, have mercy. Well, the last one we was
Toxic or
talking
not?
about was really good. We a little off balance, man. Y'all gotta give us a little time, man. I'm late. Had a hard day at work. I got
Toxic
off
or not?
late, man. I'm in here though, man, and we are ready to get to it, man. We do have lives. We are real people. And sometimes we tend to fall a little short in some areas, man. But special condolences. We definitely want to give our condolences to our very own Calvin, man, and the loss of his father. And we want to just continue to pray for the Hill family, man. I'm pretty sure that was a major blow, man. And we just want the Hill family to know from the chatterbox that we love them, man. And so y'all just help us and continue to pray for the Hill family, man, and going forward, all right? But also, man, look. It's been a great week, hasn't it been a great week? I mean, I know we had off last week, but how was your week, Twan?
We've been slow.
Been
It's been a
slow?
little rough, but it's good.
You
Made it
good?
through.
You all right, though?
Yeah, I'm good.
Shoot, that's all that kept. What's up, Kyle? What's up?
I was busy.
It was.
I was asleep in the car.
I don't blame you.
Knocked out.
I know that's right. I know that's right. You shoot, man. Look, it's hard, man. It's hard sometimes, man, doing the stuff that we do, man, and still being able to get here at 7 o'clock on a Monday, man, after a long weekend, man. So we definitely call this this is an anointing. You have to be anointed to do certain things in life, man, in order to fight through. And this is definitely an anointing, man. So yeah, we definitely want to just say from the chatterbox, man, we missed y'all last week, but hey, we back, man. Let's chat it up. We was talking about toxic and non-toxic relationships the last time we spoke with y'all, man. But it was going pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We had a friend on by the name of Sharon, man. Really good guy, man. He was speaking on some stuff, man. This is what we do at the Chatterbox. You gonna be a guest on here. The floor is yours.
Yeah.
Because that's our intention, right, man?
Yeah.
To be a voice to the voiceless. So any guest that we bring, man, feel free to do your due diligence, man. You can have as many notes as you want. Don't take it too far. Please don't take because I do have a cutoff, and you don't know when you cut until you're off.
Yeah.
All right, but listen, definitely had a good time this weekend, man, at the cabin with my family, man. I enjoyed my weekend. I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed this week, man. It was really nice, man. But what's on your mind today? What's on your mind today?
Vulnerability and boundaries is what we're talking about today.
Vulnerabilities and boundaries. All right. It's about to go down. We see you on here, Miss Pat. We see you. I don't really know how you say your name. It's Athy Seabar. We see you on here. Glad to have you on the show. Listen, definitely put something in the chats, man. If you on here, man, definitely put something in the chats, man. When we're talking about it, if something hits your front door, something come down your aisle, man, say put something in the chat. We'll definitely talk about it. This is what Chatterbox is about. We're about chatting it up. So we're going to talk about vulnerabilities and boundaries. That's thick. That's deep.
Yeah.
That's deep, man. So, what do y'all feel about vulnerabilities and boundaries?
I think of vulnerability. I say fear.
Mm.
Would be one.
In what aspect?
I'm just your general thoughts on vulnerabilities. Like, what do you feel like a vulnerability? What do you feel like your definition of vulnerabilities is for you? And we know the general definition, right? To be exposed, to be in a dangerous situation, you know, all of that. But what about to you?
That's a good question.
Mm.
So vulnerabilities, for me would be any manners that would be unsafe for you, not just necessarily physically,
Mm-hmm.
but emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
things that would not be necessarily safe for you to keep you in line or in alignment with whatever your goal
Right.
is or purpose
Okay.
is.
That's good. So when you think about relationships, right? Let's talk about relationships and vulnerability and boundaries, right? So what do you feel like vulnerability is in a relationship? And we talking to y'all too, Miss Pat, Miss Athy, Miss Mason. We talking to y'all too. We definitely want y'all to be involved. What are vulnerabilities? What do you feel like vulnerabilities are in relationships? I feel like a vulnerability in a relationship is transparency, right? And there are two types of vulnerabilities. There are vulnerabilities which are voluntary, and then there are vulnerabilities which are involuntary. Let me explain that real quick because I know somebody just asked the question, well, what's an involuntary vulnerability, right? Just to put it in layman's terms, an involuntary vulnerability is like a child put in a bad situation, right? Because children don't have the consciousness, they don't have the morale, they don't have the sense, they don't have, the brain to actually put themselves in a bad situation. But if a child get put in a bad situation, it's on who?
The parent.
Right. So that's involuntary vulnerability. Like if a child
you
get
can't help.
molested. You know what I'm saying? Like a child couldn't do nothing about that, right? There's nothing that a child could do to stop themselves from being molested,
Right.
right? So that's involuntary vulnerabilities. And then we're talking about boundaries. Ooh. I know that one touched real deep with you because the last time we wasn't even talking about boundaries, but she went on about the boundaries.
Yeah.
And she said, if he mess with my stuff, if he go past, that's, hey, you go feel my pressure. You weren't playing no games about them boundaries, man. But what are boundaries to you? What are boundaries to you?
Boundaries are what keep you safe in a sense, like for example, when it comes to a relationship, boundaries can be seen as a sense of a lot of respect. So you have things that you don't necessarily agree with or like that make you feel unprotected or unsafe.
Right.
So you set things to guard that.
Right.
Boundaries are also boundaries for people that are not necessarily in alignment with you. So if I set a boundary and I say, okay, well, I'm not, I don't feel safe when you do X, Y, Z, or this is uncomfortable for me.
Right.
And then you meet somebody, friends, family, a significant other, and they're like, well, I want to overstep this boundary, or I don't care for this boundary. Right. That could mean a lot for you, meaning that it can mean a lot of things could get very uncomfortable as a sense that I'm no longer safe because you've overstepped it. So if I set a boundary and that boundary is uncomfortable for you, it's not necessarily, doesn't make you necessarily a bad person. It just means that you're not in alignment with me. You shouldn't even be around. Right. Anybody that causes you to go against that boundary where you're no longer safe, whether that be mentally, emotionally, or whatever that is for you, it doesn't mean, let me give you a child, for example, because I feel like this is something that's overstepped a lot with children, especially. This is where it's taught. Right. So as a child, you meeting one of your parents' friends and you're uncomfortable. And as a kid, you don't necessarily know how to voice that. So your boundary line can come up as being off-put from other people, stepping behind your parent for whatever reason. Sometimes we teach our kids to go against what that boundary is because we don't understand that that's a boundary for you. Right. We're looking at you're just uncomfortable, get comfortable. Right. What you're teaching your kid at that point is not to respect their own boundary and not to trust what that boundary is. Because you're telling them, oh, just go against it. But you have a natural instinct that's like, okay, this right here is uncomfortable for me. Right.
Like a pet peeve.
Exactly. This is uncomfortable. This makes me uncomfortable. Sometimes we don't know exactly what that thing is, but we just know that this is not a comfortable state for me, whatever that may be.
So let me ask you this, because you were talking about the boundaries, and so at what point in a relationship do you implement boundaries? Like, do you come in the front door, like y'all at date time? It's the first part of the conversation. How you doing? How you doing? Yeah, I'm this, that, and the other. Yeah, my day was going all right, but let me tell you this off the rip. Let me tell you something. Is that how it go, or do we kind of ease the boundary in
I
there?
feel like people don't say anything, and that's the problem. You should say something. You should, but we don't do that. What we do is, okay, I'm gonna get to know you, and then I'm gonna decide what my boundary is with you.
So you have boundaries prior to
I'm finna say
meeting a person.
Yeah, or you already have boundaries.
Yeah.
That you just don't cross.
Yeah, and then you don't say nothing until that person or the boundary that you
It's
already have.
overstepped, yeah. And sometimes that's not a good thing. 'Cause that person, sometimes some people don't know what their boundary is, but sometimes a boundary is a natural sense of respect. Like you already know. It's unspoken, but it's understood, if that makes sense.
So when we're talking about boundaries and vulnerabilities, when people crossing over your boundaries, do that make you feel vulnerable? Is that the reason that you get so upset about you crossing this boundary? This is a place that I've put this line right here. I drew this line in the sand. I told you not to cross it. There's stuff over here that I don't want you to see. I mean, what?
As far as your vulnerability, because it's such a broad thing, I feel like that can be defined as anything. You can be vulnerable and still have certain boundaries be crossed and not feel like you're unsafe. But that's like a danger zone. It's just like me saying, okay, if I see before you see a stop sign, a yellow light is right there.
Right.
So when you get to that yellow light, you already know you can close to that boundary line.
Right.
Like be cautious. By the time you get to that stop sign, after that stop sign, there's traffic. There's other things that you're going to run into that's going to make you go into a hard stop if you don't stop at that yellow light.
Right.
That's just your safety line. I feel like your vulnerabilities are always present. It's just a matter of how you protect them.
Right.
Like, that's what that is. It's like, okay, this right here, this is for me, this is where I feel safe. Or this is where my mental allows me to go, or this is how far I want to go with you. And then the boundary line is just set the border for it.
Right.
Like, okay, this thing right here.
And so, what is some of your things you feel about boundaries, man?
About boundaries?
Yeah.
Like whether are they good or bad?
Yeah, all that good stuff. Or do you feel like a person should have their boundaries with themselves? Like, should you have self-implied boundaries?
Yes, it's good to have boundaries. Boundaries bring order, structure. So it's good for a person to have boundaries. I feel like preset. Just that's when communication comes in. If you within any relationship or friendship, you have boundaries or whatever. Whenever you set boundaries, you're gonna have to communicate with the person to allow the person to know what your boundaries are. I guess in order for it to be
a boundary.
Yeah.
All right. In order for it to be respected, in order for it to be acknowledged, we have to state our boundaries. Boundaries for me are synonymous with standards. Boundaries for me, they are actually an implication that you stand for something. You understand? I will do a lot of stuff, but I won't go there. And I feel like a lot of people don't set boundaries. For one, we got Miss Ross on here. I knew she was going to join online or something. We're so sorry she couldn't be here in person, but she's online, man. She go speak that truth, man. Glad to have you on, Miss Ross. Hey, Miss Mason, how you doing? We're glad to have you on. She say boundaries are important in relationships to set the standard of what is expected. That's crazy because I literally just said something like that, Miss Ross, right before I read what you had put on here. This helps you maintain peace within. Peace within is so important. I think when people cross certain boundaries in our life, it does leave us feeling a sense of vulnerability. because you're like, man, you crossed into a place that I don't allow nobody to cross into. You've seen me in a way that I don't even allow people to see me. And a lot of times that comes from prior situations, right? Because you have allowed somebody to get close. Like when you allow somebody to get close to you in certain ways and they mess you over, somewhere in you, you say, oh, no, I ain't gonna let nobody else do that one. You know, and so you put that boundary up, not even knowing that you actually. So let me ask you this, because we finna go in. I'm gonna be with you next week. Don't worry, that's what's up. We will have Miss Roz on here next week. She will be the guest. Just have your stuff ready. The floor is yours. On next Monday, y'all be tuned in to Miss Roz. Is so inspirational. She has so much knowledge, man. So I love when she tunes in, and so I'm definitely gonna love when she comes in the studio here. But so let me ask you this. On boundaries, do you believe that life kind of encourages or motivates us to build barriers instead of set boundaries? I asked that on Facebook. Look, if you tuned in right here, do you believe that life will allow you or motivate you to build barriers instead of set boundaries? What do I mean? When we encounter bad situations, do we put a barrier up or do we set a boundary?
I feel like boundaries and barriers are one and the same because a boundary in a healthy aspect is just something that's meant to keep you protected. Okay, don't go this far. But it will act as a barrier against people who are not in alignment with that. So if somebody you set a boundary and they're trying to overstep it, that just means that person is not in alignment with you. It doesn't make them a bad person.
Right.
But they're not in alignment.
Right.
So that just means move around.
Right.
That's how I see that. In the same aspect, when you get into certain situations, relationships or friendships, and something happens, you start setting up certain guards. So you start guarding that boundary more.
Right.
So you can over supervise that boundary. You can over supervise it. You can start going like you start becoming paranoid. So you start protecting from everything instead of what is really set for to keep certain things out. You start pushing out everything. Like, okay,
you got petty.
None of y'all.
Right. You got petty. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And that happens so much. And a lot of times, you know, we don't notice it, but I think it comes from vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities when we said vulnerable. I mean, do y'all feel like it's okay? Do you feel like it's okay to be vulnerable?
I do.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that you can be vulnerable, but it needs to be mindful. You can't just be hopelessly vulnerable with people. Everybody cannot be trusted with that level of space. Or things cannot be trusted with that level of space. You have to understand that. You have to learn to understand, like, who can be trusted with what, how much of you with what, what portion of you with whom. Like, that's something that you have to understand. And I think sometimes that comes with experience.
That's a hard teacher. Experience is a hard teacher. Ms. Ross said in some case we put up barriers because we're protecting ourselves out of hurt. And barriers, we are protecting our peace so that we can remain in a healthy place.
Yes.
So I guess it's safe to say that when people cross certain boundaries and we experience certain vulnerabilities, we're in a unhealthy place. Defense mode.
Defense mechanism.
Oh, okay. And what does that look like?
Like angry dog, like the dog that was abused and is chained up to a tree, and that he can't accept any type of help, so it attacks everybody.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one side of vulnerabilities, but then you have your significant other, right? So, at what point do you be vulnerable with them, and at what level?
That I feel like that comes with the experience of that relationship. I feel like initially, well, I'll speak for myself. Initially, you letting down certain guards that peeking over the gate to see, okay, if things safe, it's a test. You're just like, okay, I'm gonna lower this and see if I'll let you like walk through this.
Right.
And as you're experiencing that person or that thing, whatever it is,
Uh-huh.
you'll start customizing that boundary. That's what you should be doing, customizing that boundary.
You saying some good stuff on her, girl. You say customizing the
You need to
boundary.
customize that
Please explain that just a little
you need
bit.
to, when you're making that decision. So, for example, if you're in a relationship with somebody, initially, a lot of women or a lot of people in general, you want to feel safe with that person in every aspect. That's not real. So a lot of times you always start with like a little feed, like you kind of feed them a little bit. Okay, this part of me, and depending on how they interact with you in that area of your life, they'll a person could make you feel like, oh, this is okay, this is safe.
Right.
So that little inch, then you're like, okay, a little more. That's what you do.
Play,
that's exactly what you're doing.
Play,
and then if that person in some way abuses it, or they show a certain character about themselves that is no longer safe, you're either going to reclude or you're going to be merciful. You'll be like, okay, maybe it was just a day or just a moment. And that part gets sticky. That gets really sticky.
I guess it's safe to say that vulnerabilities and people crossing your boundaries can ultimately become abuse if you don't watch. That's good stuff. Maybe the reason a lot of people are being abused is because they keep overlooking people crossing boundaries.
Yeah.
You keep treating it like it's gonna get better. You keep pampering it and putting bandages on it. When the truth is, you need to uproot it completely. And the problem with a lot of us is we don't want to uproot it because we feel like that's gonna affect a relationship in a negative way. And if that be true, then what kind of relationship is it?
Codependency.
Oh.
Yeah.
Codependency. Talk to me about codependency. What is this codependency thing that we're talking about? What is this?
Codependency comes in the sense of, most of the time, it comes in the sense of, or in a relationship, I don't want to be alone because it's your Band-Aid to other things that you haven't necessarily healed from. So it's that Band-Aid that allows for you to accept certain behaviors so that you're not necessarily alone. So you develop a codependency behavior. Well, this person does this. Well, the exchange is my self-respect. The exchange is my dignity. The exchange is X,
who I
Y, Z.
am as a person.
Yes.
My character.
But at least you're here.
Oh, my God.
At least I'm not alone.
Oh, my God.
It's always taking spot of something else. It's a teddy bear. It's a Band-Aid for something else.
Right. So you may not be
addressed.
lonely, but you're definitely alone. You might not be lonely. You might have somebody there to share your pain with, but you're definitely alone in who you are.
Or to somebody to put you in pain.
Right, right. But you accept that, right?
Exactly.
Because you feel like you're not worth more.
A trade. Yeah.
You're not worth more. Look, Chris Johnson say, miss you last week. We miss you too, Chris, man. We missed all of y'all, man. But he says, boundaries without balance is a disaster waiting to happen. Boundaries without balance is a disaster waiting to happen. Ms. Ross say, this is where discernment comes in. Because this will help determine your level of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And I believe she's talking about with your significant other.
Yeah.
I know. Okay. Miss Athy Seabolt, I hope I'm saying her name right. I'm saying it right? Okay. She says, for me, being vulnerable with my significant other means I'm looking for a comfort zone without judgment. And if it goes left, I build walls and push away, which is an honest statement. Because you do look for a comfortable place to put your vulnerable stuff, to be transparent, right? And, I mean, if you're not married to him, yeah, that's an uncomfortable spot to be vulnerable with somebody that you know that, hey, we're not tied together. You know, it ain't too much. Even marriage right now, like marriage is such a slippery slope. You know, people don't take marriage as seriously. So, I mean, I could love you tonight and divorce you tomorrow. In today's world, I'm telling you, it goes so fast. Like, I could love you tonight and divorce you tomorrow, and hey, it just wasn't my cup of tea. And these are the things that are so funny to me because, I mean, now, let me tell you something. We had talked about this already, right? we talked about involuntary vulnerability,
Mhm.
right? Involuntary vulnerabilities are um, very, very embarrassing at times,
Mhm.
and they're embarrassing at times. I'm going to get back into that. I want to say this real quick. What Miss Ross just said. She said codependency is your crutch because you're not whole on your own. Wow. In this case, you usually accept things you shouldn't because your self-esteem is low.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. And I mean, why is your self-esteem low? Like, what have you? Most of the time, self-esteem and encouragement comes from what people say to you and how you feel about yourself.
Mhm.
So the question is, who are you listening to? Who's in your ear,
Mhm.
right? Because who has your ear is your counselor.
Right.
And if they counseling you by telling you, "I'm the only thing that you ever gonna be able to be with," you ain't gonna never have nobody else like me. You
But
oughta
that all
tell.
comes from a sense of belief as well, like things that you've experienced.
Uh
So
huh.
if certain things have happened to you, that can cause you to feel a lack of self worthiness, which is not the same as self esteem. There are things that can happen to you make you feel like your value has depreciated.
Wow.
So that's something that's something to take on as a whole. That could be for some people that could be physicality. Something happens to you physically
Mm-hmm.
to impair you. Sometimes it could be rape or some type of sexual violation.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it can be things that you were told
Mm-hmm.
as a child and still fed, and
Right.
then you start performing actions to feed whatever that was told to you. So now you're self prophesying
Mm-hmm.
and you're becoming the belief
Yeah.
that was already spoken to you. So it can come from a lot of different angles. And when you're not able to pinpoint things, sometimes so many things could happen. So they pile on top of you, and you cannot pinpoint where it came from.
Right.
I think that the key to understanding your self worth, self worthiness, if we're looking at it from that aspect, is knowing what your worth is, and you can't do that until you take off what everybody else has loaded on to you
Man, carrying
and what
around
those
luggage.
experiences were.
Right. So you just carrying around luggage.
Yeah.
You shouldn't even be carrying.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Man, so what do you feel about that, Twan?
That's the question again. I was reading this comment.
We're gonna kind of walk past. Let's just walk past it. Because Chris Johnson say, "How can you be while on your own?" Can you help me with that question, Chris? I really want to talk about it, but I really don't understand it completely. I want to make sure that I'm lining up with what you're saying. Uh, that you, I've been whole. Okay. I get what you're saying. You been whole. Okay. Help me with that, Chris. Just help me out a little bit on that one. Rod say low self-esteem could come from childhood, or maybe you experience some type of abuse, molestation, physical abuse, among other things. And that's right. A lot of times, low self-esteem comes from. A lot of times, it starts as a child. To be honest with you, I grew up in a house where my mother told me constantly, "You gonna be just like your daddy.
Yeah.
He wasn't nothing but a this and a that." You know. And so as I grew up, I'm looking in the mirror at myself like, man, I look just like him.
Mm-hmm.
People say I act just like him. She might be right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so I started taking on those characteristics, as a young child, and not even realizing that wasn't even who I was as an individual. I didn't even believe in that stuff. I had certain standards that I lived by. It was certain stuff that so I learned about my father, because my father was killed before I was born, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was still in my mother's belly when my father was dead, right? And so I didn't get a chance to meet him or know him or experience him. That was a good girl. That was good, girl. I'm up for the trip. Alicia say that was good, girl. That's my wife, man. That's Alicia Mason, man, the one and only. She said that was good, girl. And Chris Johnson say, if you are dealing with all this, are you even ready to be in a relationship?
You're not.
Definitely
But
not.
who's gonna say who is going to?
Admit that.
No one wants to admit that. No one, and a lot of people don't even understand that they're not ready. Nobody is taught that. Oh, I need to process this or heal from this first. Nobody. Everybody is taught impulse. Oh, you have
Right.
a need, supply and demand.
Right.
Feel it.
Right. Follow
that
your
person
heart.
didn't fit it. Older generation, I feel like older generations taught this when, and here's the example I'm gonna give.
Mm-hmm.
When I forgot how old I was, but I was an adult, and my mom was seeing this guy. They were getting engaged, and he passed away. 2 weeks after he passed away, her friends were like, "Well, when are you gonna start dating again?" They were already trying to fill a void that she wasn't even ready to fill, and
Right.
she naturally felt pushed or pressured to feel it, and she wasn't ready.
Right.
I feel like her generation is like, well, okay, the ideal is to get married and move on, and that's happiness. And so at that time, she was so driven by, well, I need to be happy, and this is what's supposed to make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't prepared for those steps, but she started to try to make those steps. That didn't end well.
Right.
And because we are people, we learn things like that as kids. Is that okay? Here's a need that I need to fill. This position needs to be filled, and we don't know what it needs to be filled with, and so you naturally fill it with somebody else.
You just know it needs to be
Usually, what needs to happen is you.
filled. Ooh. Ooh. You got to change something about
Yeah.
yourself. You got to vulnerabilities and boundaries. This is what we're talking about, vulnerabilities and boundaries. And man, that's so powerful, man. You're not ready to be in a relationship if you're dealing with all of these things, man. But when you're alone in your thoughts, when you're alone in those emotions, I don't care what nobody say. You're looking for an exit. You're looking for an scapegoat.
Relief.
And the first thing that comes across you, oh baby, if it just match your cup of tea just a little bit, shoot, it might have some potential. I'm finna get up
you'll
out
make
of
it
this.
look like whatever you want it to look
Yeah.
like. You'll go ahead and paint that house.
I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
And what's crazy about it is we'll get into these situations and, like I was saying the other week, man, we'll get into these situations and tell a person to love me, like me how I am. And, you just ran from yourself trying to get to me. And now you want me to, oh no. It's so vulnerabilities and boundaries are so important because you can be vulnerable with your significant other. But like I was telling all of us before we even come on here, look, we gonna be transparent with y'all because we believe that transparency is a mutual deal. Like if I'm transparent with y'all, it's gonna encourage y'all to be transparent with me, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell y'all, one of my most vulnerable moments in my life was when I got shot up. When I got shot up, I was vulnerable. Like, I was involuntarily vulnerable. There was nothing I could do to stop anybody from doing or saying anything to me. And I'm telling y'all right now, people are something else. People are something else. I heard some of the craziest stuff when I was shot up, and I think a lot of people really said that because I was shot up. I don't think they would have said that had I been on my own 2 feet. I'm telling the truth, and it broke my heart. Like a lot of stuff was said that broke my heart, but a lot of stuff was done. And I don't focus on the negative stuff. See, when you're vulnerable and you're suffering through a vulnerable situation, we tend to focus on all of the negative stuff, and we tend to neglect all of the positive stuff that was happening. But I had to tune in to the positive stuff because it wasn't but a few people that were saying negative stuff, but I got 20, 30 people who are pushing me. And I got these 1, 2, 3 people that are pulling me, but the problem with it was the people it was. Because I would have never thought that these people out of these people would be the people pulling me back while these people are pushing me forward. I had such a respect for certain people. Like, I loved them so much, and I would have never thought that they would have said some of the stuff that was said. And when it happened, it took me a minute. It was worse than when I got shot. Like, honestly, the pain that I felt from that pain there could be peeled. That pain there could be shot up with some stuff. I can get rid of that physical pain, but it was the pain that I couldn't get rid of, those thoughts that I had to face laying in that bed. That's a level of vulnerability that will make you say, you know what? Never again. Y'all got me messed up. I mean, I love you, but baby, I learned how to love you from a distance. It will push you there. And now you're turning your boundaries into barriers because you're doing stuff out of anger. I was doing it out of anger. I'm not going to sit up here and lie to y'all. I was doing it I was mad. And I'm talking about I was Pete to the old. You hear me? Because these wasn't people that I just came across in life and was like, how you doing? How you doing? Hey, you want to read a book? And then like, no, these were people that I sat down, broke bread with. You understand what I'm saying? We shared tours together. We shared moments together. And now you're sitting here asking questions like you're asking, and I'm supposed to be okay with that? Like, I could never be okay with that. I don't care who you are. If somebody who you really, really love, who really, really you have this connection with, you look at them in a certain kind of way, they encourage you and inspire you to be better, come and say, man, you were never nothing the whole time I met you. The whole time I was with you. All those moments, that was just me being a hypocrite. I didn't really like you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what it feels like.
That's what it feels like. And so how do you not make barriers out of that? How do you forget a boundary? Now I don't want nothing. I don't even want to see you. I'm gonna put up a whole wall over there so you don't even come my way. And I had to get through that. It was so hard. I had to get through that because I realized that it's a problem, but it's not my purpose. Mm-hmm. And I can't let my problems overshadow my purpose, or I won't push. And that's a hard. And if you've ever been tap in. I want y'all to be honest with me. Have you ever been vulnerable in a place where you didn't raise your hand up for this vulnerability? You didn't stand in the front of the line like, yeah, I'm ready to be vulnerable. Nah, this just hit you from the left. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, everything that you believed, everything that you woke up that encouraged you to get up in the morning and drink your coffee and put you to sound sleep at night was gone. Now the only way you can sleep is drugs and pills. And those don't even help because when you wake up in the middle of the night, guess what happens? You got to re-pop, re-smoke, re-drink. I done been there. You can't, preacher man said I done re-pop, re-drank, re-smoked, all that. Pour me up again. And it gets there. But if you've never been there, then I pray that you never have to go there. But if you ever get there, I want you to understand that it's a way out. Don't get stuck right there, right? Don't get stuck in a vulnerable. There are so many. I never thought when I became a preacher, when I became a man of God, where people come and confide with me and I counsel people and stuff like that, I would have never thought that domestic violence was so bad.
Yeah.
It's horrible. Let me read these comments in the chat, man. I don't want to go too in on that, but we gonna get back to it. It say, well, on the cool, woman was not created to be alone, and God said it is not good for man to be alone. So we were all created as relational beings. That's correct. That's correct by every letter of the word. We was all created. It's all created to be relational. And that's true. The problem is we get in relationships with people who don't have our best interests at heart. Mm-hmm. You ever been in a relationship with a snake?
Yeah.
I'm talking about a real live snake. They subtle, they cunning, easygoing, cool, the whole time. They got this knife and it's sharpener. They just sharpen it every time you turn your back. They sharpening their knife, trying to look for a spot to put it. You ever been in a relationship with a snake? I ain't talking about significant other. I'm talking about just friendships, snakes. And they out there, man. They are out there, and they looking for moments of vulnerability. Yeah. People actually look for that stuff. Ain't that crazy, Juwan? Yeah. Like, can you imagine sitting there looking for somebody to be vulnerable so you can get them?
Yeah, it makes you vulnerable to think that there are not people like that out there.
Naive.
Yes, naive. Being naive to think that there's not people, or because you have good fortune or goodwill for some people, good intention, that nobody has bad intentions for you.
Man, I learned it the hard way.
I don't do these things, so I'm not going to reap these things. That's not true. Sometimes things that you're reaping don't have nothing to do with what you put out there.
I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to tell you.
That's nothing to do with that. And if you're blindsided by saying, well, I've never done this, so why would anybody want to do that to me? You are making yourself vulnerable.
Right.
You are making yourself vulnerable when somebody or something shows its true colors to you and you choose to be like, well, benefit of a doubt.
Yeah. Right.
Where it's not required.
Sometimes it's not a benefit, huh? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a liability. Miss Ross says, as we mature and grow, we learn the difference between barriers and boundaries so that we take action based on our peace and not our emotion. That's powerful. That's what I had to learn, Miss Roz, as I was going through that. Mm-hmm. I had to learn that I'm really like arming up. Like I'm building an armory. Like I'm building this fortress over myself because, man, I don't know. I was emotional. It hurt. Like it hurt. Mm-hmm. And it's unexplainable. It hurt, man. But once I realized that I'm building these barriers for, out of the wrong reasons, then I realized that I have to step back, get with God, pray, man, and actually consecrate myself and actually find myself again. Because you'll lose yourself. Like you'll lose everything that you are in the wrong situation. And it's nothing wrong with that if you have the encouragement and the strength to get back to your right self. I think the problem with that comes when we don't get back to our right self and we don't seek help. Mm-hmm. So now you have become your enemy. Yeah. See, I probably just went up somebody's road with that one. Mm-hmm. You have become your enemy. I don't know. Got a little quiet. You ain't become your enemy, have you, man? Nah. I want to make sure I'm sitting by the right people around here, Who want no trouble. Miss Ross said, I've been in a relationship with a snake, and trust me, it's heartbreaking because you didn't expect this from that person. Mm-hmm. And that's right. And, man, that's sad part about it is people don't have it written on their forehead.
And even if they do, sometimes you are so hopeful and optimistic for them to be a certain way or their potential that you will ignore what they really are. That you'll ignore it. And that's speaking from personal experience.
Right.
You can discern something left and right.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also make a decision not to listen.
Right.
To go completely against and be like, well, I want to see this as pink. And that's comfortable. And then it will bite you.
So what we're saying is it is okay to have vulnerabilities, but you have to be vulnerable with the right person.
Yeah.
I understand that.
And obedient to your discernment, just to piggyback on what Rosalind said, is that you having discernment is one thing, but adhering to your discernment is a whole nother. Everybody has it.
Right.
Everybody has discernment. But you go against it a lot of times. You have that, okay, well, my instincts are telling me this.
Is it because of the
looks? For whatever reason you go against it, it could be looks.
Like
it could be what that person's doing for
waves, smile bright.
That or what somebody is doing for you, or what you are making up in your head, your own illusion, your own dream of something, and you're just placing it on that person. You putting a suit on somebody that don't even fit. So I mean, don't do that. Don't do that.
Oh no! Have you ever put a suit on somebody that don't fit?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, that's just I'm just speaking from personal experience. You can discern something, understand that, or see that someone is not going to be X, Y, Z, whether it be friend or relationship, and decide to go against that because you want to see something else, and you're determined to make something that it's not there, but you really want to force it against its nature. Some people are just a certain way.
Right.
And you wanting or hoping or being optimistic for them to be something else or to change is not enough to create that in reality.
Right.
Sometimes you just need to take things
as
for what it really is.
Right. If it walk like a duck, quack like a duck.
Yeah, it's
a
duck,
duck,
not a donkey.
It's a duck, right?
It's a duck,
As you
not a
say,
donkey.
I've been in relationships where I've lost myself trying to be the person that the other wanted me to be and not what they seen from the get-go. And that got me in a bad mental space for a long time that I had to pray my way out of. And I understand that too, man. A lot of us, we put on for others, man, because we want them to be comfortable with us. We want them to feel like we got their back. We want them to like us in a certain way, and we want them to see us in a certain light. And doing all that stuff that they want, we done forgot what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now
What
we
you
running
need.
around here talking about I don't even know my favorite color no more. I used to like that, but I don't really like that no more. You confused about you.
Changing faces.
Right. You don't even like M&M's no more. You just like Skittles. Come on now, you used to love chocolate. I be hating when people say, I don't like chocolate. Man, you know you used to eat chocolate when you was a child. You got old and somebody that found you with chocolate on your teeth said, oh, you ugly. And now you only eat Skittles because it don't get stuck on your teeth. Stop changing because people talking about you. You got to find somebody who loves you for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't find somebody who love you for what they hope you will be.
Mm-hmm.
That's not love.
But people do that all the time. People are like, people, you can like somebody or really think somebody will be a great friend.
Mm-hmm.
And you are so caught up in the idea that I like this person for this position in my life
Mm-hmm.
that no matter what they show you that doesn't align with what your vision is, that they're not this, you'll still be like, no, I want you to be this though.
Right.
I
Right.
want you to be this.
Right.
This is what you are. And no matter how many times they show, well, I'm not really this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really this. You'll still try to put them in a certain position that they don't really belong
Right.
in. Yeah.
Now let me say this.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between a person giving you an ultimatum of either you be this
Mm-hmm.
or not, and then encouraging you, well, I see this in you. And I feel like you can be better if you do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big difference. So don't think that, everybody that wants you to be a certain thing is giving you an ultimatum.
Yeah.
Because that's not true,
Definitely not.
accepting you of who you are. Now, I can come into your life and say, man, I think that you would be a great this or a great that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's encouraging.
Yeah.
Now, if I come into your life and say, either you lose the hair
Oh yeah.
or you lose the lipstick or you
True.
you got to lose the short skirts. If that's a whole different thing. Now, if I don't like it and you choose not to do it, that's different. But if I just give you an ultimatum, either you do this or I'm not going to be with you, then I'm ultimately trying to change you. And I learned that early on in my relationship with my wife. It was certain stuff that, she did and I did that we didn't like. And, it was one of those deals where you had to be like, man, you know what? What's greater? Is it my relationship or is it my desire for what I think I want in a woman? Because my wife, I'm going to tell y'all the truth, over these last few years, my wife has showed me things that I would have never thought I wanted in a wife. And I love them. I love every last bit of them. I hope she listening to this. I hope she tuned in. I hope she heard that part. I just gave you a little shout out, boo-boo. I love you. Ron say being vulnerable means I'm going to let you in on my most intimate thoughts and feelings. I think that's different for men and women. Y'all agree with me? Just put it in the chat if you agree with me. I think vulnerabilities are different for men and women. We was talking about this the last time. Like, what do you feel like a woman's vulnerability is? Coming from a woman.
I feel like that comes in stages. So what she's saying as far as thoughts and feelings, I feel like that's a high level of vulnerability. That's a high level. That before I expose this part of me, there are things that I need to see that you can really handle that part of myself. So that's a really high level to be that vulnerable with somebody with your thoughts and your feelings.
Right. First, you got to be vulnerable.
Also, with your insecurities about yourself, the way that you think, not just what you thought, the way that I think, the way just giving you pieces of me, everything makes you vulnerable. Everything.
So would you consider this like vulnerable if I was to give you my phone and say you can go through whatever you want to go through, have your way?
I don't think that's vulnerable.
Shoot.
That's not vulnerable.
See, it's different for men and women.
I feel like that's a level of trust, not vulnerability.
Well, you still vulnerable.
Yeah.
You still
So I
vulnerable.
could like cut you.
Shoot. Man, let me tell you something. Man, I think it's different for men and women. And let me tell you, I think I'm on here. We grown. We grown. I think one of the highest levels of involuntary vulnerability of a man, we talked about it before, was in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
When the system has a check engine light on it during the start of the takeoff. It's not working right. Something isn't. And I think that's one of the most shameful, embarrassing parts of involuntary vulnerability for a man is when you can't perform in the bedroom. It's involuntary, right? But so in your head, you like, man, there is no way out of this but the truth. and you try your best to hold that truth back as long as you can, because in your head you like, man, she gonna think I don't like her, she gonna think I'm not attracted to her, she gonna think there's something wrong with her, because ultimately that's what women do. They feel like it's them when it's really this dude has a porn addiction. This dude been working real hard. He's tired. It's so many different aspects, so many different things that can actually go into that situation, but it doesn't neglect the fact that it's still embarrassing. Now, for men, that's a vulnerability. But for women, see, I can't speak for y'all.
Well, yeah. So when you're as far as that physical vulnerability, yeah. But I feel like that's more nursed from.
Man,
I think it's just certain things that could make the reason that you feel that that's vulnerable is because of standards that are placed on you.
Wow.
The reason that a woman would feel vulnerable about a sexual encounter is because of certain standards that are placed on her.
By
They
who?
wouldn't exist if y'all.
Oh, really? Okay. So you gonna chunk it on us like that? I think it comes from us, though. I really think it comes from women. No.
Or vice versa. Like it's just certain, and not only that, it's just influence. Music that you hear.
Bro, that's funny.
What are they saying? You need to go for this long. You need to be this. You need to be that.
Right.
So automatically, if that's something that everybody's hearing, even if that's not necessarily a standard that everybody could stand to, it's still a superficial standard that everybody is holding you to in the back of your head. Right. And that's where that comes from. It's just like, okay, hold on. I don't want you telling your friends.
Right.
Because I don't. You know,
sure, because that's your word, man. Because y'all women be tripping. Like when you get into it and y'all breaking up, so-called breaking up or something, you know, that's the first thing. That's the first thing a man think about. That one time where it wouldn't work, because you know what women gonna do. That's why you ain't. What? Hold up. That wasn't even supposed to be in the conversation. You just told me to get my clothes. I know I messed up and stuff, but God, you go just expose me right here. You got all my partner right here, all your homegirl. You so that's why a lot of people are afraid of exposing vulnerabilities to each other, because not because
they don't want to be. What is that word? There's a word for that. That's a word. There's a word for that. That's not
exposed.
Not embarrassed, but whatever that word is, there's a particular word for that.
Well, we go find that word. Like, we go find that word.
You don't want that type of same thing with, especially any intimate part of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Man, they got some stuff going on this chat. I ain't lying. They got it going down. You hear me? Chris say these relationships. Did we have any idea on the circumstances before or early on that the relationship, or can we say, or take accountability for our role as well? Yeah. Excuse me. Ms. Ross say, we must learn to be us and not letting our representative show up. Love me for me. Trying to please someone else's expectations will have you losing yourself every time. Be the best you, because you were designed to be you, not someone else. That's so powerful. Chris say some relationships we want so bad we become vulnerable to make it, and that is when we fail, when we fall. I think that's when we fail. Yeah, I know what he meant, but you know, you make yourself vulnerable. You become vulnerable to make it, and that is where we fail. Chris say, amen. That's all relationships, marriages, families, and laws, and etc. And that's true. Ms. Ross said, I think there are levels to vulnerability. So yes, it's different with men, and that's true. I'm telling you. Chris said, I would agree. However, the heart is funny. It could be a best friend as weak as man, as weak. I think he's saying it could be a best friend as well as man. Okay. He said you can't be naked and not ashamed with everyone. Even the ones you think you love the most. That's vulnerability, undressing or taking off layers of yourself to one you trust. And so that's what, and I think that's what a lot of relationships are missing. That vulnerability thing.
That level of intimacy where you can feel safe to be vulnerable.
Right.
I feel like it's a desire. Nobody keeps on everything.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to keep everything on.
But isn't it funny how we'll take off our clothes before we take off our clothes? Y'all will catch that when you catch it.
I feel like it's easier.
Yeah, but you saying like you want to see if the sex good depending on if I'm gonna be vulnerable with you.
Well, that's silly. But
Some people do it. They take off the clothes before taking off the clothes.
Yeah. Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
I think that's just coming from something totally different. You just want to make sure that you're not stuck in something where you're not getting a certain level of satisfaction. I think that's where it's coming from. I wasn't talking.
So will that hinder your vulnerability? We just talking about it. It's so real.
That won't hinder my vulnerability, but that could be a topic on another show. I mean, another episode because.
But I think we should talk. We got 5 minutes. We got 5 minutes.
So I feel like sex doesn't necessarily. You can have a level of intimacy with someone and just not have the sex. Like, oh, this sucks, but you're great in these other areas of my life, but this part sucks.
So we can't get married.
But there's not a lot of patience for that. Like, who's going to be the teacher? I don't want to marry you. I'm just going to be honest. I don't want to marry you. I don't care.
God.
Yeah.
No.
So
and
listen.
can I get A and B to coincide?
Oh my God.
Because I've been married. I have been married and been with somebody who we never met up on that level in our relationship. That was never.
Man, she did not mean it like that. I promise she didn't mean it like that.
And I was like, oh my God.
She'll overlook it if it's worth it. Oh my God! See,
y'all,
we talking about we being real on here. We just taking off the clothes, man.
Because I've already just from my own
experience. Do you feel like that
before,
plays a part?
My mind was like, you know what? You love somebody, you can teach them whatever in that area. You can teach them if they're willing to
be taught.
Learn that. But like you said, to be vulnerable, some people are so invulnerable with you that they can't be vulnerable with sex. Like they cannot be satisfying. That's hard.
They can't let loose.
You can't have a part of the reason that I went through a divorce is because there was a certain level of intimacy that was gone. That was just never there. It was absent. Right. And that impacted sex.
Right. Because it wasn't right.
Yeah, because it was just weird. Never a certain level of vulnerability that was just never there. Right. A certain level of intimacy that was just never there. So it was never in that. It affected that part of the relationship, a big part of a lot of parts of our relationship, but it definitely impacted that. And
did that affect you with boundaries?
Yes, because what you do, or what I did in relationship was like, okay, well, I'm not happy with this thing, right? I'm gonna talk to you about this thing, right? And we can fix this. Mm-hmm. Well, if the other person's not willing to fix or not willing to address, then you're hindering yourself. Like you are being a part of a marriage is being a team.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing I'm laughing at my wife.
Like,
talking about, yes, she did. Oh my God.
Like being a part of a marriage, you're a team player.
Yes.
So if I come to you and I'm coming short on something, and you let me know that, I'm supposed to level up.
Right.
Like we're supposed to level up together. We're a team. But if one side of the team is always pushing away and the other side isn't, it's just not going to work.
Right.
And this particular person was just not available, didn't know how to be vulnerable emotionally.
Right.
Didn't know how to be a lot of things. And it all came back to, well, I don't know how to express myself emotionally.
Right.
And it impacted other parts. I don't know how to tell you how I think. I feel insecure. Are you going to feel a certain way? If I think differently, this person was constantly used to people pleasing, like making sure that everybody else was pleased with my idea of self, but never truly themselves. And that impacted every part of the relationship.
Wow.
So hanging in there with something like that, it's not healthy for either party. It's not. And besides that, nobody wants a sexless relationship. Please. Please. Nobody want that.
Oh my God! Listen, please tap in. My wife say yes, she did, and she saying right, and she ain't said this much stuff since we even started the show, y'all. Y'all pray for me at home. Please pray for me. Y'all understand what preacher man be going through. Listen, Chris Johnson say right, and so what you're saying is so on point. Listen, we have to learn how to be vulnerable, but we have to learn how to play that in a certain way because it's stages to vulnerability, right? We expose a little bit. How you take that? Okay. Oh, you expose a little bit. Boom. Okay, this is good because now it's
Yeah,
mutual.
because it's equal give and take.
Right.
Equal give
we
and
go
take.
deeper with each other.
If you are ever showing yourself more vulnerable than another person, that person is preying on you.
And yeah, you might
Bottom
be weak.
line,
You might be sheep
you
to wolf.
Mistake,
Yeah.
okay? You got to get ate. All right.
Yeah. It was this woman, man. She
it
bought a
is.
snake, man. The snake used to wrap itself around her every night, and she used to have this false idea that the snake was cuddling her. Isn't it funny?
I remember that story.
That was the story. It was out on Facebook that the snake was cuddling her, not realizing that the
really
snake
sizing
was
her up to see
actually,
if
you heard me, sizing her up, making her a plateable meal, waiting for the opportunity that he can jab her down the throat. And there are so many of us right now laying in the bed with people who we think are cuddling us when they really just trying to feel our vulnerability.
Yes.
They trying to check a little weak spot. And so we got to be careful, but nobody is perfect, but we are supposed to be able to work it out. Work it out. Like Ty Tribbett. Wasn't that Ty Tribbett say? Yeah, that's the song. Yeah, we got to be able to work it out. And boundaries and barriers are both good, but you can't put up boundaries where they're supposed to be barriers, and you can't put up barriers where they're supposed to be boundaries. Really, barriers are to keep stuff out and to keep you in.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
And boundaries are for people to not cross, and for you to not cross yourself. Your boundaries should be implemented on you first. Yeah. You can't just put, now there are some boundaries that you can't put on yourself. Like there are some things that you can do to yourself, but there are some things that you have to say to yourself, look, I can't allow myself to do this to me. Mm-hmm. And that way I won't allow nobody to do it to me either.
Right. And learn to adhere to your own boundaries.
Yes,
because
it's important.
If you're not adhering to your own boundaries, nobody else is. And it's not that they're watching you not adhere to you.
Right.
You are giving them a certain level of energy.
Right.
And that's going to be automatic. I don't protect my boundaries. So you're going to attract a lot of people who don't respect their own and not going to respect yours.
Right.
You're going to constantly overstep it. And you're going to cause yourself to receive a lot of different levels of abuse, whether it be verbal, emotional, spiritual abuse.
Right.
You're already abusing yourself.
Right.
And you're going against your own boundaries. You are.
Ooh-wee.
It may not look like a black eye, but you really got one.
Self-inflicted wounds. Self-inflicted wounds. And when it gets there, then we know that you are in a bad place. Listen, it's 8 o'clock. Twan, you want to say something, man, please? I know it. I'm telling you, because these chats, man, once you get to talking about it, man, it'll fly by on you, man. I hope we was able to touch some stuff, man, but it was some good stuff said, man. Y'all really helped me out. Y'all have no idea how much y'all help me every week, man, to talk about and come up with these topics, man, because I know that they're near and dear to all of our hearts. We got to just realize that when you are being vulnerable, you're not just being vulnerable to what people can do to you. You're being vulnerable for what you can do to people.
Yes.
And you might set yourself up to kill somebody if you don't watch it.
Yes. Yes.
Ooh. I had to leave you with that nugget. I had to leave you with that one. What you got, Twan?
Being vulnerable can be probably one of your greatest aspects. You gotta allow yourself to understand that being vulnerable, you gotta accept things you can't change.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
definitely.
Sometimes, man, a lot of people don't feel like they can start over after they get so deep into an abusive relationship. But I don't know who this is for, but sometimes starting over is the only way you can finish. So sometimes you're going to have to start over. You're going to constantly be in a situation of insecurity, impartiality. You're going to constantly feel discouraged, depressed. You're going to constantly feel like you're not enough. You're going to constantly feel like everything you do is wrong. You can't never do nothing right.
And let's start from not looking at things from a victim perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do not
Do that.
victimize yourself.
Mm-mm.
It is the worst thing that you can ever do to yourself. Don't victimize yourself. Because if you start that, I didn't deserve this.
Right.
They did this. He did this. She did this. You lose, one, your own accountability that you allow certain things. And then on top of that, it just puts you in a helpless situation.
Right.
A victim is helpless. A victim can't do anything about what's happening to them. So you give away your control like that. You have to just stay away from becoming a victim, because you'll be a victim again. I guarantee you that. Humans are creatures of habit.
Right.
You are a creature of habit.
Right.
So avoid becoming or making yourself a victim in any situation, not just relationship, in any situation. Find where you are held accountable at.
Mm-hmm.
Find what's safe for you and work at that. Find what you need as far as healing, what you require. Everybody can't give you what you require.
Right.
And accept that certain things happen, and accept, I can handle this, but I can't handle this.
Right.
Like, don't let your pride talk you into things that you can't handle anyway.
I'm telling you.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Be mad at yourself.
Yeah. Don't stay mad too long.
Listen, we love y'all, man. Listen, Chris, Roz, Pat, all of y'all who are tuned in. Anthony, we so glad that you were able to make with us tonight. Please like, share, and definitely follow us on YouTube at the Chatterbox on YouTube, man. That's with 2 X's. Listen, this the Chatterbox, man. Look, we glad y'all came and tuned in, man. Listen. This is where we chat, we chat it up, man. Listen, next week come and chat with us, man. It's your boy Shelvin.
The boy True 102.
Lady Cara.
Lady Kyra in the building. Listen, we love y'all, man, and we're so glad y'all tuned in. I hope something was said, man, to make it a better week for you, to just stimulate some thoughts in your mind about, am I in a vulnerable relationship, and is it abusive, or just help you to kind of guide, help us. Do I need to set boundaries here, or do I need to set barriers here? What do I need to do in order to make my life better, in order to be a better person, in order to not be in a comfortable place, but a place that pushes me to become a better individual all around. We love y'all, man. Till next time.
Till next time. See you later. Never goodbye.
Holla back.